Okay, so now instability post TKA is definitely, we find a lot of cases these days. The only thing is you have to attend to these details, and you have to be pertinent in the history, in the clinical examination, to look at the failures of your knee. So these are my disclosures. So instability post TKA, you find it around 10 to 20% of the revision cases that turn out to you. Majority of the cases who are dissatisfied after surgery, we start looking back in more details and more pertinent on the history, examination, and radiology. We'll find more caveats to that. In all these cases, we have to rule out infection. We have to check out what kind of a surgical technique was used before. Many times, implant designs, like the kind of femur used in, and also patient-related factors like neuromuscular or polio needs to be kept in mind. What do we quantify as instability? Instability is abnormal excessive displacement of prosthetic joint that subsequently would lead to failure. And this is a combination of a lot of technical errors going on from malalignment to the ligamentous release, causing hypo or hypercorrection, excessive slope on the tibia, any adherent injury to the collaterals, undersizing of femoral components, or at times, depending on the condition, you are not using an optimal kind of a constraint. So it is the patient who normally tells you that I have an unstable knee. So when you look at the history, the patient comes back to you that my knee is not stable, it is not functioning well, I have a difficulty descending down the stairs, getting up from a chair. Or when you make them walk in cases of ML instability, you will find a lot of thrust and lift offs. The unstable TKRs, the physical examination, whether it is intra-op or patients coming back to you into the post-op stage, is assessing your varus valgus laxity in full extension, 30 degrees of flexion, 90 degrees of flexion, and at times in full flexion also. The AP draw text, leg dangling at 90 degrees would tell you posterior sag. I'm very sure Dr. Rajpalani, who are high volume CR users, we at times get patients coming on to with lax PCL subsequently. So checking on that your PCL is functional, you have to do these kind of tests. On the radiographs, as was narrated earlier, you have those AP and the lateral views, full length coronal sagittal views. In cases of coronal plane instabilities, you have to have these varus valgus stress views. Or in cases where we are suspecting a malrotation of the femurs or the tibia, a CT scanogram is required. So unstable knees, whenever you're handling unstable total knees, you will be starting with different situations. A patient who had a well-lined knee with very good collateral ligaments, if you still have instability, you have to think in terms of wrong bone cuts or inadherent soft tissue releases. Second category is malaligned fixed deformities with good quality collateral ligaments. These are the cases where you have fixed flexion deformity in which maybe excessive distal femoral cut was done, or hypocorrection in varus or valgus, or rarely in cases with poor incompetent collaterals like type 2 valgus with elongated middle collateral ligament. So the types of instabilities are, number one, we start with extension instability. Extension instability, the name suggests, can be symmetric or can be asymmetric. Symmetric is where you have over-resection of the proximal tibia or the distal femur and you have component loosening developing up. More common is asymmetric, where you have angular deformities or intra ruptures or damage of the MCL. In situations like this, where you have inaccurate bone sections while correcting your coronal plane deformities, you have an inadequate over-release of your collaterals or damage to the collaterals. Or in cases where you have, we were talking of the rotation, where you have these kind of valgus deformities and you use posterior condylar axis alone as a mark, you will be having these kind of instabilities. If at all on table you identified that you have an instability and a picture like this, you have to check on the status of the MCL. If it is present, but you still have a bit of a laxity, you can, in a CR case, go with a posterior stabilize or a deepish. In a PS knee with a higher amount of peg height. If you have a lax MCL, it is better onto those cases to move on to varus valgus constraint. But if it is absent, move on to a rotating hinge. Also, there's a choice that you want to augment hamstring graft or in cases of these kind of braces to be used for future, depending on the kind of deformity and the case. Recurvatum instability. Recurvatum is in less than 1% of the cases, but most of these cases ones with neuromuscular like a polio, or in a rheumatoid where you have insufficient collateral and cruciate ligaments, or a fixed valgus deformity. Here you will have a posterior release done, and subsequently a lot of these polio cases would develop hyperextension because that's the way they stabilize their weak quadriceps in a stance space of gait. If you get these recurvatums, yes, they have choices to move on to less amount of a distal femoral resection or using distal femoral augments, but majority can be switched off with a reading hinge design. The new caveat that you find in a lot of cases is flexion and mid flexion instability. A lot of these cases who are unhappy post surgery, this is the missed quadrant, and I'll spend a minute on this. They have a history, the history of a giving way, recurrent infusions. They are always good range of motion post-op because flexion gap was always loose. The problem will be rising from chair, which manifests instability. In a CR knee, when you dangle the legs down, you will have these posterior sags. Or in sort of a PS knees, you have positive interior draw stress. So there are multiple areas of soft tissue tenderness. They would put their fingers onto the pes and serinus region or onto the IT band region. So these are the areas where they complain of tenderness, and femoral component malrotation is on face present. So the causative fracture reason for majority of these flexion instabilities, ones that have to be kept in mind is any undersized femoral component being used. In CR knees, rupture of the PCL. Many times we try to do a release by using interior bundle of the PCL or from the tibial time. In the moment you extend off, this weakened PCL ruptures up in a CR knee. Any excessive posterior slope, as you see in this picture, or excessive section of the posterior femoral condyles. These are the gaps where the flexion extension gap is actually not balanced and they have a flexion instability. So in general, the mainstay of revision surgery is to increase the posterior condylar offset through a larger femoral component and posterior augments. A lot of interest has risen on to this in the last decade on mid-flexion instability. So any mediolateral instability within 30 to 60 degrees of flexion is a diagnostic of mid-flexion instability. So always assess your knees, not only in full flexion and extension, but also in the mid-flexion range. And 3 contributing factors to be always kept in mind. One is cases where you proximalize the joint line for maybe correcting a FFD deformity. You have a laxity of posterior capsule, PCL, and collaterals, and that would lead to mid-flexion instability. A pretty controversial discussion has been on the discussion where a couple of studies found of multi-radius designs having more kind of mid-flexion instability as compared to a single radius or a gradient radius, but not really proven up in a long-term perspective, or in cases where there's an MCL laxity. So these are the 3 factors to be kept in mind when you're thinking in terms of mid-flexion instability. So the point to remember is varus valgus instability in mid-flexion range as a routine for all your intra and post-op cases. If you have instability in more than one plane, that's a global instability. Not uncommon in a couple of cases with bad rheumatoids where the tissues were very, very bad, or multiply operated knees where the soft tissues were incompetent or impatent, or using the wrong kind of a constraint across, or in certain cases like allodial syndrome. So these are the cases where you have stability in multiple planes and you have a dislocated knee presenting to you. So in global instability, you have pictures like this. You maybe have locked knees and patients living like this for a very amount of time. As you see the picture on the right, when you try to flex the knees and put up a distraction, you will find almost 8 to 10 millimeters of the gap between the poly as well as the femur. So these are cases of global instability. But when we talk of these early instabilities, also to be kept in mind is this late instabilities. When you have a wear of the polyethylene, ultimately the posterior part of the poly would be worn off and you have this instability developing many years after surgery. These are the cases of late instability. Or in cases where there is a subsidence of the component and collapse and a fracture, the knees would again be unstable. But these are very late presentations. When you get pictures like this, where you have a subsidence of the tibia inside the subchondral area, and you have these instabilities presenting to you. So these can be built up amount of a constraint and extenders onto the femur on the tibia, like in this case we have used in S-romanoids. So to conclude, in instability post TKA, successful outcomes can be achieved if etiology of the instability is identified. Just don't go to the revision. Try to identify what was the reason why my knee failed. So you'd have a careful history, listen to the patient, the clinical findings, your anterior posterior drawer, your sac signs, your radiological analysis, your stress views, everything will give you a picture and lead you on to the cause of the failure of your TKR. Varus valgus stress testing at full extension, 30 degrees, 45, 60, and 90-degree flexion to appreciate the condition of surrounding knee stabilizers to understand your instability. Classify your instability and manage your system with the optimal kind of a constraint. It is not essential that instability means that you move on to the highest level of constraint. Use just the optimum or the minimum degree of constraint necessary to solve your instability. And thank you so much. I'd be more than happy to share up any questions that you have.